So good morning, good afternoon and good evening to all our viewers out there in Cyberland, and thank you for joining us on another chat with a beautiful guest today. As usual, we always have beautiful guests, but another intimate conversation, and this time our guest is Kepa Earles, and welcome, Kepa.
Kia ora, Mandy. Ko Tangihuia te Mounga, ko Wairoa te awa, ko Mahuhu ki te rangi te waka, ko Tangatarore te Marae, ko Tirarau te toku tūpuna, ko Parawhau te Hapu, ko Ngapuhi te iwi, ko Kepa Earles toku ingoa. Kia ora.
Beautiful. Thanks for introducing yourself, Kepa. And I'll just read the rest of your bio here so that our viewers can get an understanding of who you are. So born and bred in Whangarei, which is in the North Island of New Zealand, right towards the very top. Have been working with whanau, which is family, who are in need of support in various services to provide tools to help navigate change and management of triggers, trauma cycles, to enhance individuals in making positive, healthy outcomes for themselves and their families with the resources currently available, while utilising our traditional cultural gifts of Te Ao Maori, to enhance connection with mind, body and spirit, understanding our past and present value. And again, thank you for that intro, Kepa. Kepa and I have known each other for quite a few years now and have come together in many times, assisting each other in our mahi that we do. And I, for one, have been very, very honoured to have this man in my life, my children's life. And for me, Kepa is such a treasure. And anyone who knows Kepa knows that he is the most giving, kindest, most compassionate, generous man that I think I've ever met. He gives his all to everyone. He's a soul-driven, beautiful-hearted man who puts people first. And I so dearly love you for that, Kepa. You're just such a beautiful soul. So I am so honoured and so excited to get you onto this intimate conversation and have this chat with you so others can really get to know who you are on a deeper level if they don't already, and introduce you to a further community really too, because you're such a gem. So Kepa, as a child, and I always start with this in our conversations, is, you know, were you an aware child, aware of your spirit, aware of Wairoa? What did, you know, how did you experience life when you were a kid in that respect?
I suppose when I was a child growing up, we grew up in Portland, which is just out of Whangarei. Back then it was quite a big community. I think the refinery was just starting then too, so there was quite a big place. So all these places with big industrial, you know, like plans and stuff were getting into motion, and so it was drawing all the whanau in. So it was a big Māori community out there. And I suppose when I was younger, I actually didn't know about any of my gifts or anything until I was probably over my 20s, to be honest. Yeah. And it was probably mainly around the patterns that were happening that I couldn't shake, or I didn't understand why they kept happening. And on the other hand, I didn't understand why at certain times I was being saved at the same time. You know, like a bit of divine intervention, if you say.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I suppose for me, I was just really lucky. I come from a really struggling background. So, you know, my parents had they were broken up. My father was born deaf. He hardly ever spoke. So I think my connection with him was actually taught me how to read people.
Yeah.
And how to connect with their emotions and how they're feeling without them saying.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then I had my mum who, although both of my parents were on substances, so they were alcoholics and stuff like that. They had hard lives. So I think because my dad had a disability, he struggled most of his life, you know, and he was actually raised by Maori as well, which I only found out later on in life.
Oh, wow.
And it was quite funny because the old kuia that raised my father, their family were one of the original whanau. They lived in Portland, and I'm very close with them now, you know. So it's just funny how the generational things keep happening, you know, but we don't really know the stories behind them. And my dad's family, they were more Seventh-day Adventists, so, you know, was very different culture for me. My mum's family were Ratana, and so, you know, even though they were Ratana, my mum wasn't really into church. You know, she was just into working and, you know, work hard, play hard kind of thing. And then we had the culture around, you know, back then my mum and dad were around the pubs a lot, so there's a lot of violence and stuff like that. Had seen a lot at a very young age, you know, and being isolated and being on my own. I'm actually happy to say, you know, this is what I mean about divine intervention. I'm happy to say that I was never abused or was never, you know, like, I was never hurt when I was a child. I was, you know, I was mainly just being isolated, so just being on my own, you know. But probably saying that, you know, I'm not an angel. I can honestly say that. But I think that's what I like most about what I do, is that I am really honest.
We have to be, eh?
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah, and I even feel bad, like even when I was young, because I remember we had no food, and my mum would be in the pub, and I used to go to Decca when it was in Whangarei Mall. This was way back, and I used to steal chocolates, and I used to feel bad, you know, about going in and getting a chocolate every hour, you know, because I was hungry, you know. But you know, that's me. I've always been like that, and I can't lie. I actually do have to tell the truth. I did go through a bit of a period where I was struggling with substances myself, even like being quite emotional, like reacting, you know, really fast and not being positive with that, you know. And it was like built up tension, really. I think what it was because of my past or my childhood, it didn't teach me how to communicate or how to talk about what was happening internally with myself. And I didn't know how to ask, so I definitely didn't know how to receive. And then I definitely didn't know how to, you know, how you're supposed to act in that circumstance, because I didn't have any role models. And so my parents weren't very good role models, I'm just saying. But you know, but you know, as I've gotten older, I've learned to understand that they were you know, struggling with their stuff as well. So, you know, obviously they had it harder than me, and that's probably been part of my journey around learning about healing and peace and forgiveness, really, you know. And the basis of all that is around love. So,
it is.
You know, unconditional.
Yeah, for sure, Kepa, and that's something you very much are, that person. You're a very unconditional, loving man. And, you know, our parents didn't know a lot. You know, they were just, I mean, do we get a parenting guidebook when, you know, there's probably them out there now, but they weren't when we were, you know, coming into adulthood and having children. And our parents certainly didn't get any guidebook on how to raise kids. And deal with their own emotional traumas and things that had happened. It just got shoved away, and life, you just get on with life. And, you know, you come to realize that all those experiences we have from them as well, you know, they've taught us so much, eh? And you know, that's like you say, you can read people now. You feel into people and their energy, and you know people with that because of your dad's disability. And that's a great thing, because you're very good at doing that too, I must say. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I had when I was young, I tried a lot of things. I think because I was because I was angry and stuff, and going to certain substances, say like marijuana. Okay, I'm just saying, because it was enhancing and it would make you happy and laugh. So that kind of stuff when I was young. Like, I was never educated. I'm just saying, I've gone through school, but I've never really passed anything. I've just been present.
Yeah.
And going to school for many years without any lunch or not having the best of everything. I think when we were at primary school, we got introduced to basketball, like a sport, and it was from there where I kind of grew a passion about it. And that kind of helped me a lot to deal with my my physical energies, so. And it was a good way for me to release, but also it helped me to socialize and stuff like that. And so I quickly adapted once I got kicked out of high school. That I had to, because I think I was only 14 when I got kicked out of high school. So I, and our mum had left us as well. She had abandoned us, I think, between 10 and 12. And so had to go back and stay with my dad, but he was still dealing with his own stuff. Like, he never got help for any of his things. So it really, I don't know, put me in a situation where I was able to analyze things and look at it. I was good at looking at others people's stuff, but when it came to my own, it was really hard because I didn't want to deal with it, and I think that's really common with a lot of people nowadays.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a world where we can get instant gratification or instant acknowledgement, and so it's so easy to, when you're holding something for so long and then you get instant gratification, like that's gone, but it's actually the opposite. I think the longer we leave it, the harder it is to let go of it, and then we're so susceptible to the patterns of becoming a part of us.
Yes.
So we're scared of letting go.
Absolutely.
And I was definitely like that. I went through spates of suicide, like everything. Went through spates of, even in my relationships, there was a lot of toxic behavior there, and most of it was because I couldn't understand. I was still hurting from our mum leaving, so that affected my relationship with my partners, and I had children I have 8 children, and I had these 8 children to 3 partners, and then I got married to my wife, and she had 1 child and I had 7 at the time, and she's been a blessing, to be honest, my wife. I love her so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
But so going through all of these mistakes has actually been a real learning for me, and it's helped me to use them as stories, or to help others to feel comfortable about where they are in their life, that it is normal, and that it is okay to to be vulnerable. Because from that vulnerability we can gain trust, and then we can actually have a connection, and then we can start working on a plan. So I've kind of used my life experience, to be honest, in my mahi. Yeah. And I'm pretty good at it. But I wish I could do more, like we all do. But sometimes you've got to be patient, because if we go too far ahead, we burn out, and I've learnt that as well. Yes. So I think when I started learning about my own gifts, I had actually done everything wrong, and I was actually looked after by a lot of families that were, so I was whangai. Yeah, so I was probably whangai to probably 18 families, but I was really close with about 3. You know, so when you think about it, if you're connected to 18 families that aren't yours, and then you're part of their family, so then your whanau, you know, the numbers in your family have just gone huge.
Yeah.
So hence the reason that being in Whangarei for so long, I have a lot of I know a lot of whanau and networks here.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll be honest, I'll never leave Whangarei. You know, because I love it here. I do love it here.
Yeah.
Even though we're going through a lot of changes and there is some negativity around, I still love where I'm from, and
yeah.
you know, I want to enhance that and I want to help that. That's why I live here.
Yes.
You know, and I want it better for my kids. I want them to know.
Mm.
But I think for the spiritual side, I was lucky because when my mum left me, when I went to the bus stop with my mum and she asked me for all the money out of my bank so she could catch a bus to Auckland, and I was kind of puzzled, and then I gave it to her, and then she caught the bus and she told me that she was going to Australia and never coming back, you know, and then she got on the bus, and that there was real traumatic, and I think that's where I had my issues with my partners, you know, and then with my father not communicating or showing me any communication or any discipline around, you know, what to do or role modeling. You know, it was really hard for me to understand things. And so I adapted other role models from other whanau. Yeah. And I took pieces out of them that helped me to understand myself. You know, so yeah, it was pretty complex. But when mum left, I rang a lady called Daphne Poor. And she was a nurse in Kaikui at the time, and she come down and picked me up, and you know, and then she got on the phone and she started, like, you know, I suppose racking up my mum's family and my dad, and then my dad ended up taking me on. I got really sick when I was with my dad because he was really unhygienic. He was a hoarder. Yeah, right. So it was unbelievable. He was like on the TV programs, he was exactly like that. And I had to live in those conditions. I actually got really sick. I got hepatitis B living there. Right. And we had a community crew that come in and helped to clean the house, you know. From there, I made friends with other family, and I would actually choose to sleep at their house, but come back to my dad's and shower and clean up and then go, you know. It was just easier. Yeah. But Daphne Poor, she was a very special lady, and the one thing I never knew growing up was my own family tree, or we call it whakapapa. You know, so whakapapa is really valuable to us as Māori because it connects us, and what it does is it helps us to understand where we are in the generations, or where those members from other families have met and started another branch. Yeah. So so Daphne's taken me in, and then because she took me in, I felt obligated in my life to return the favor to her, you know, because I needed that mother figure still. There was her, and there was a lady called Sarah Clark as well. That was very, very, very good to me, and Nanny Hilda, her mum, but also Harry Clark, Sarah's husband. You know, the Clark family, they were very, you know, they really went out of their way to help me, especially when I was in trouble. Yeah. You know, with Auntie Daff, I couldn't really put that burden on her because she was a lot older. That was when I was, you know, playing up and stuff. But I think from her, because she did a lot of spiritual work, so she was, I think what they call it in your guys' terms is clairvoyant. Yeah, clairvoyancy. Yep. And in our terms we call it matakite, so she was a seer, and she could you know, she could forecast or predict things, or you know, give you a sense of understanding around the situation that you're in. And so I got really intrigued by all of this, and so because I used to help her, I used to take her, so I was her tono, so I was her support aide. And then I would go with her and we'd go to different families that needed help, or they would come to her. They would come to her for readings, or, you know, they would just come because they're struggling, or that their family needed help with the situation, you know. And a lot of it for Māori is around grief and around past trauma, where we find it hard to let go and where it becomes unhealthy, you know?
Yeah.
And so, just people when they're in that state, they need reaffirming, or they need a bit of grounding so that they can, I suppose, cleanse themselves to be more clearer about where they want to go next. You know, so in the line of work with her, I met other Māori practitioners, and another lady that I did a lot of mahi with, because she mahied with Auntie Def, was Auntie Gina Tamaki, and Auntie Gina was like a tohunga, so she was very deep in Te Ao Maori, and you know, I spent a bit of time with her as well. And you know, I suppose the one thing that I learned from her was, when you're of service in the gifts that you have, you know, you're always going to be in demand. And for the longevity of that mahi that you do, and also for the people that you do it with, you know, balance is really important. So, you know, like health for us as Māori is really important, because, you know, our statistics are really bad. Because we're not too good on maintaining those goals, or keeping to that standard. And then I think we just get overworked and burnt out, and hence the reason that, you know, things happen. But it kind of made me realize around that stuff that, you know, we need to maintain better. We actually started doing healing groups from the Ratana Church, you know, way back. I was in trouble with the law then, and then my Auntie Def took me to the church, and I got a blessing from the minister there. I think it was Tohu Pou, and you know, he molested a karakia to me and said, you know, if there's any way we can help, you know. And then I said, oh, is there any way I can help you? And he said, well, actually, we need a caretaker. We need someone to help, because it was damaged inside, and they needed, you know, to do the lawns and all the outside. So I agreed to do that. And then we started running programs from there. We did a lot of healing classes from there. And from Auntie Def and Auntie Gina, we were able to bring in a lot of families from the Whangarei area. And each family had their own gifts, you know. And then we actually started getting more, excuse my language, more of our Pākehā whanau coming, okay? And sharing their gifts, you know, and it was really good. And Shelley from the Whangarei Healers Association, she was a Whangarei Healers, she was a big part of that too, you know, and yourself too, Mandy, you were in there. And we had quite a big range of skills and gifts that we could all learn from. And so, you know, there was people that were coming in could do a koha, and then they had a choice actually on what they wanted to do. I think we were doing detoxing then too, with the feed and the water, and they were sucking out the toxins. You know, give them a cup of tea and stuff, and then you could get a reading, or you get a midi. We were doing midis back then as well, and you know, people were understanding. I think diabetes and stuff like that, and cancer. You know, blood. Like blood health issues around clotting and stuff like that was a big thing that was in the discussions back then. I think we were doing journeys around how to let go of trauma, and you know, going on this healing journey so that when you come out of it, you were lighter, and then you were able to start fresh again. We had people that could see colors. We had people that were working with crystals, you know, chakras. There was a variety of gifts.
Beautiful, eh?
And I just really loved how everyone would come in. We had the one goal, which was to be of service. You know, and we had a lot of range of ages. So we had old people, you know, that had gifts. It went right down to young people that were just wanting, that had gifts but didn't understand it. This was a really big thing back then.
Yes.
Because a lot of our children that were like that, people thought they might have had a condition. Or, you know, and they did have a condition, and I believe in some of those conditions that actually gave them an opening to be deeper within that gift without them realizing it, you know, and with a bit of training, you know, help them to maintain it and utilize it for themselves and for others, you know. So then we started having classes, you know, making rongoa, you know, going out and doing field trips, you know, was really good.
Yeah, lovely.
And it all started from there, you know, really for me, just understanding that. But the one thing that got me was, because growing up and not really knowing my mum's family or my dad's family and having other whanau be my family, I didn't really want to know my own whakapapa, my belonging. So when I did know, I actually realized that the families that were looking after me were actually already mine, you know. And then through learning through my whakapapa, it helped me to understand about my tupuna, you know, my ancestors, about my kaitiaki, my guardians, and also the importance of, you know, our traditions that we have, you know, like basics like karakia.
Which,
you know,
explain what karakia and miri also.
So karakia is more or less prayer, yeah, and it's prayer, and so, well, whenever I'm anywhere, we'll always have a karakia to start and finish. We'll usually have it when I'm dealing with people with heavy thoughts, or, you know, stuff like that. I suppose some of the mahi that we did do, you know, was a lot around just supporting whanau, some with mental health, you know, some, you know, and it was a lot to do when they'd come off their meds and they didn't have any more, and how that space was, I don't know, maybe call it moia, you know, where they can travel to other places.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, you know, and miri is around massage. So, you know, being able to, usually your hands will be really hot, you know, when you're rubbing on the area that is affected. You could probably, when you're doing a miri, you could feel where they're holding on to their burden, or maybe where, you know, maybe where the seed of that issue has started, you know. It's one thing I've learned from the mahi that I've seen and been involved in, is no matter how big the issue is right now, you know, it had to start somewhere as a seed. And so to fully understand it, or to try and clear it, you know, I've always been taught that we have to go back to the seed of it.
Yes, absolutely.
You know? And that's probably the hardest thing for a lot of people, because it's bringing up past stuff that they've already learned how to mask or sedate. You know, so you know, it's kind of like when we're in such a state and we're crying and stuff, we're in that state, and what we don't realize is when we cry, it comes from our stomach, our puku, and our puku area for us as Māori is around whanau, you know, our pito. So that's like the start, the birth of life. That's where you first get that's where you grow from. You know, so when we're crying, it actually comes from there, and then we pull it out, and it comes out of our body and on the outside, so internally and externally. But what it's actually doing is it's cleansing us on the way out, you know. Why? And then that's why as Māori we use a lot of water. So, you know, if we're feeling heavy or anything like that, or if we have our tongas, you know, our you know, our treasures that we've been given to us, or, you know, that we cherish, and, you know, you got to clean them too. It's like when you have the maramataka or the moon's out, the full moon, you put your crystals out, So same thing with tongas, you know, greenstones, whalebone, you know, whatever it may be. You know, when it's raining, we want to cleanse them out in the water, you know, on the trees or on the ground, you know, or go to the ocean and do a cleanse and a karakia, you know, and just be thankful for the elements that are there to help us, you know, acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Because without the elements, then we're not learning how, I suppose, our 4 seasons within our body are in one day.
Yeah.
You know, so we, you know, and what I've learned, because I'm 50 now, is that, you know, the maramataka, which is our moon cycle, has a lot to do with our emotions and our energy levels. So, you know, our ancestors were great people because they had things in place already that worked. And I've noticed now that we're actually going back to those things because they still work. You know, so I don't know what it is with modernization. We always want to make things faster.
We do. We're impatient beings.
Yeah. The only thing that's faster is probably us not being capable, you know, or feeling that way, you know, and you know, from the spiritual element, it's helped me to filter and process my own stuff, try and balance myself. But like I said, you know, I've done a lot of mistakes myself. So from those mistakes I've made, those have been big stepping stones for me to overcome and probably learn from, you know. So they're all learnings, but also they're also confidence. They're steps of confidence in the fact that I'm not afraid to be open about it and talk about that stuff. Like I'll talk about anything. I'm telling you right now. I just don't want to go over it on here, but you know, there's some really heavy stuff that I've seen and been through. So, and the mahi also with Auntie Gina and Auntie Daff, you know, is about well-being with our whanau. You know, it could be around grief or loss. You know, it could be we're going to cleanse an area that's been tapu, or, you know, like makutu, like a curse or something like that. There might have been death there, might be suicide, there might be a murder, you know, might be a road accident, you know, stuff like that. Or going into houses and things happening like that as well, you know, blessing buildings, houses, you know. I'm keen to do anything, and I will, because I just want to help, you know, and especially when there's families and children involved, because I believe, you know, that we should not be afraid to show what they're not our gifts, they're actually things that have been passed down that we can still, you know, they're free. And if we make it a resource for everyone, then they can help their kids and their families, you know, so then we're all on the same page. Yeah. And, you know, and then you find out what works for you, to be honest, you know, what you resonate to. Yeah. But that's what I definitely believe around sharing, especially with our gifts and our knowledge of spirituality, be it in European world, or be it in Te Ao Maori. Oh, because I'm half Scottish too, by the way. Okay. Right. So yeah, we're the Cameron clan from Scotland, from Lockhill, and you know, my dad, his name was Brian Cameron Earles, and my mother's name was Joyce Tumanako Hauraki Niha. Tito Hauraki Niha Earles. Yeah. So, you know, I'm very proud that both of my ancestors wore skirts. So, you know, the Maoris, they wore pew pew, and the American Scottish wore a kilt. Yeah. You know, so we're very similar. But you know, knowing your whakapapa, your family tree, is really valuable, because the traits that your ancestors have in your whanau are some of the things we do naturally, and we don't understand where that comes from, because we believe, oh no, that's you know, what you're doing, that's a learnt behavior or something, you know. But actually, some of that stuff has been handed down. And so, you know, learning from my 2 aunties about taha Wairoa, and then learning about our ancestors who did taha Wairoa, and then learning that, you know, it was very strong in our whakapapa, and that, you know, like, you know, at the start I was like, oh yeah, that means that we're strong in the sense of being spiritual, yeah. But really, we all are spiritual, and we all have gifts. You know, it's just how much do you want to believe in your intuition and your instincts, and then and actually have confidence in what it is you feel. and being able to translate that so that it can be an understanding to help someone.
That's right.
Hey,
Yeah.
and so, and for me, I think that's why I go back to, when you're right and wrong. So when you're being honest or not. So when, I can tell when things are right because I'm feeling honest and it feels true.
Yeah.
I can tell when things are wrong because I automatically feel like, no, I'm already getting told, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
And then when it's true, it actually flows. And then it comes out, it's like never ending. I'm just being honest.
Mm.
And then you just keep going and going. And you actually have to learn how to pull back because you're so in the moment and you're so, I suppose, on a roll that you just love being in that space. And I love being in that space. I love being of service. But, it's addictive. I'm just saying.
It is. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey.
Yep. And it's because we know that is what we're here to do. That's who we are. We know that without any doubt. And that what we're doing is we're just doing what we love doing. So therefore it just expands. More and more of the same comes. Kepa, there's, you just go into so much in helping others that you definitely are serving. You've always been in service to humanity. And I know, you've helped so many thousands of families, hundreds of families in Whangarei and around. What would you say? Like, pea's a big thing, it's a big thing. It's taking over community now, and it has done for a very long time. How do you feel? Like, what do you feel is the thing that we all know that it's Wairoa, that spirit, their spirit, they've disconnected, there's no connection. I feel the answer to all of our problems is to come back to our spirit, to connect with Wairoa and find out who we are in that space and who we are in our spirit. How do you, do you see that? Do you see things improving? Because you're out there in ground zero. You're right in there. Do you see it improving out there, Kepa? Do you think pea's going to end anywhere, or do you see it, is there a positive to it in any way? Because there's got to be somewhere.
Being a substance user myself in my teenage years, I can understand why I suppose people are moving more towards the Class A drug. Yeah, and it's the only thing that people don't realize, okay, and this is the difference between life experience and clinical, is that a clinical person will go and study about a subject, but not know the effects, okay? They'll read it. A person with life experience has gone there and tested it, taken it right to the hilt, and then gotten off it, and then been able to, let you know what the actual effects of that are, because they've done it. I've always believed that clinical and life experience should work together to make a more focused, I suppose, system or plan around how to manage or help others, especially in that area, in the drug and alcohol area or substance area, because a lot of it is triggered with mental health. And then you've also got, you've also got trauma, depression, and then you've got spectrum stuff hanging over the whole lot. So there's many areas that it can trigger off. Like, it can't just be one that can get triggered off over here and end up over here, it's just how we manage it. And I think as whanau, we actually need to educate ourselves around what our family historic illnesses are, to be honest, so that we understand and we know what we're looking for. We know what the patterns are, and we know what the triggers are for when we go off those things, I think that, when we're using substances, we're actually trying to escape. There's a hole there that we're trying to escape. And the biggest issue with whanau is communication, okay? Because we're whakamā, we're ashamed to be able to talk about what it is that's hurt us or what's been done to us. So we more or less, we isolate ourselves, we you know, my dad was really good at that. He would, because my mum heard him. And what I noticed was every day he would come home and he would drink, and he would go into the kitchen, and the day he got hurt, he would replay that every day, you know?
Yes.
You know, and so I would pick and choose what time I would go into that kitchen, because there was times I didn't want to go in there, because that was when he was getting angry or telling her what was happening, you know. Yeah. But he ran that over and over every day, and that was his cycle and how he coped with it. The thing that really got me was, even though my father had that loss and he more or less abused himself that way, he always had loved my mum. You know, so it was quite hard for me to understand, like, why do you still love her, you know, and he never let go of it, even till the day he died, you know. He still loved him. He always thought mum was going to come back to him. My mum ended up having a partner and moving to Australia. Yeah. But my dad, you know, he always loved her, like, even on his last breath. And to me, that was, you know, that was real special. Yes, for sure. You know, so I think with the substance stuff, it depends on what it is that you're dealing with. But I think with my father's case, there was actually stuff within his own family tree that had happened generations back as well, that he probably wasn't privy to, but he had actually run the same pattern, you know. So there was a lot of drinking in the family tree. There was a lot of you know, toxic relationships. There was suicide. You know. So and then you're looking on my mum's side, there was actually a lot of you know, there was a lot of abuse, you know, there was a lot of anger. I think in those times they had the epidemic, the flu epidemic. So, you know, my great grandparents, they all suffered because we had big families, and I think they lost like 8 of their children, you know. So when you're a male and you're providing, and then something happens where you have no control, then internally you're broken, you know, and because you feel like it's all your fault and stuff like that. You know, and this is where we get stuck, I think, and even now, even though we have a lot of counselling and we have, you know, even though we all go to counselling and other services, we still don't give them 100% of what it is. Yeah. You know what I mean? No, they work the system, like you can work the system. You just look at the suit yourself. Yeah, you know? Absolutely. You know, you can give them the top 10%, but there's a 90% iceberg underneath it. Yeah. And it's only until you go to someone who's intuitive and can feel and pick it up. And the only reason that we pick it up is because we've been there. Yes. I'm being honest. You know, we've been there, or we've been shown that it's there. Yeah. And the way I get shown is, if I'm around someone, I'll just start feeling things, like, you know, and then I'll be like, oh, damn, I want to cry, or, you know, or I'll ask them what's the matter. Yeah. And usually they burst out crying. Well, then, you know, and I say, hey, what's going on? Is there something you need to say, you know? But you know, it's a really hard subject, because everyone's levels are different at different times of their life where they're growing. And I think if you have a stable home or foundation when you're young, your family unit is strong, you know, and communication's open and you're supportive, then it doesn't matter what you go through, you know, you'll still deal with it together. Yeah, absolutely. You know? And what you're teaching your children, and that is that, you know, it's okay to be vulnerable or not to cope. It's okay if you need help. It's okay to ask. You know, it's okay to receive help. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I think we get afraid to be part of the stigma of being diagnosed in a certain, you know, condition, and then we try to hide that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, we do. And Kepa, what would you say, you know, like, men's role really in the beginning was protector of land, women and children. And that now has sort of lost its way. A lot of men, like women, sort of became, you know, where we were really protecting ourselves from men and our children.
you know, and there was that separation that happened where women were bringing the children up on their own because men were still out there doing their thing, whatever that might be. And often it was still, you know, warring it out, being the warriors and still out there, you know, battling or fighting or doing whatever it might be. And yet there's a lot of men, I'm not saying all men, it's not generalizing in that respect, but there's a lot that now in respect to that, what would you say, Tane, you know, maybe need to do or to bring back in? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because we got lost and there's such a separation between them in relationship to male and female, and since there was this big gap, you know, where we had to protect ourselves from men.
Yeah, I honestly, you know, males, being a male role model to me is someone who is unconditional, someone that will always be there in the bad times, probably more than the good, you know, and someone that you can feel safe to go to, where the door's always going to be open, but very mindful that, you know, there's, you know, you better have your manners and be respectful, you know what I mean? You know, the discipline stuff nowadays, I feel, especially with our rangatahi, our young people, is because most of, you know, fathers or mums are broken and either dad's either away, right?
Yep.
You know, either incarcerated or either, you know, working abroad, you know, just away. Because even there's whanau that, you know, they do fly in, fly out stuff from Aussie. And honestly, I got a few mates that have worked over there for more than 10 years, you know, going on 15 years. And for the amount of money that they've made, the price of them missing out on their whanau is more than what they bargained for. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So you have a place where you can provide, but there's a loss there, and it's around time.
Yeah.
And then over this side, you know, you got our males that they can't really, they don't have the confidence to, because they have no role models. Do you know what I mean? Yes. You know, and then we start looking for these role models. So, you know, like we have a lot of good, you know, and Maori role models are really hard. I'm being honest to find. We have a few here in Whangarei that are pretty prominent. You know, like there's Phil Pike here who does a lot of stuff. There's Martin Kaipel, you know, and you know, even my whanau brother Aaron Clark, you know, he's doing a lot of mahi there, and you know, there's a lot of you know, oh man, there's a lot of Māori role models that are helping in the Whangarei area. But, you know, we need to be running programs so that we can actually educate even our whānau, you know, about what their role is, because our males are protectors and providers, but they also got to learn about nurturing. They also got to learn about being vulnerable and showing emotion. You know, our women, they're actually the king, I'm being honest, because, you know, they're the only ones that can carry a baby and bring life into the world. We're there to support them, you know. So they are the you know, they are the toa, the warriors, because they are the ones that carry, breed, and they actually do most of the mahi. You know, so the gratification or the value in the feminine energy, I feel, is still off, you know, in society, you know, like the male-female stuff. But I've noticed the females are actually starting to get ahead.
Yeah.
And it's only because of the way they are naturally, I feel. They're easier to work with, and, you know, they're more caring. But the males, you know, we still have that, we have that lack of DNA where we seem to get selfish in times of vulnerability, and maybe, you know, our triggers, you know, like trying to maintain something and then relapsing, you know, stuff like that, you know, is pretty common in both sides, but mostly males, especially around the substance stuff. Yeah. You know, we always, and I think what people don't understand too about methamphetamine or any class A is that if you're in a state of mind where you're not well, or you're depressed, or you're hurting because of grief, or you're suicidal, or you know, there's been some kind of abuse or trauma that you haven't spoken about or gone through.
Yeah.
Whenever you take that substance, it's actually going to enhance that, okay, without you realizing. But what it's doing is it's taking you away from it, because it's making your levels go up.
Yeah.
But then when you come down, you're actually starting to dig a hole where you can't see out.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. You know, that if you're digging a hole, then all the water, you're going to drown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because of all the sadness, you're going to cry so much, you're going to fill that water up, and you're going to drown. So I always say to people that are on that are finding it hard with any substances, is, hey, you need to lift your head up, and you're in the hole right now, but you need to dig a trench, okay?
Yeah.
So that we can make it flow somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, and so that can start running, and then your levels it's not as heavy for you. You know, that's just you know, just an example, but I really feel that substances nowadays is actually around making money, you know, and people are making more money off, you know, off communities that are struggling.
Yes.
And also like, you know, like our prisons, our justice system, you know, like oranga tamariki, you know, stuff like that. Like, they're overloaded. All the government departments are overloaded, you know. You know, and because I suppose those systems haven't changed for such a long time.
I was just going to say, Kepa,
you know, hence the reason we haven't had a different outcome.
Yes.
And I think now we're in a point where everything is going to change, hopefully, and that you know, that task can go back to some of the iwi providers, you know, or the Maori iwi and Hapu, so that we can start utilising our traditional ways to better manage or to better have better well-being for our whanau, you know, and then we're also, what we're doing with that, if, you know, once we get there rolling, is we're going to enhance our value, you know, as people, to actually be able to help each other, you know. So
that's right.
It's actually a really big discussion this year.
It's a biggie, and it is. This year is definitely the time where new things are going to be put in place, which, you know, if we look at the system, all of the systems that are breaking down at this point, I mean, the whole world is, in a sense, the whole structure of how this world ran is now crumbling, which is a good thing, because it didn't work. It's not working. And so we need to absolutely apply some new stuff. And it's time to look outside of those, you know, society's system and those boxes and labels as well, because, you know, hearing you speaking, you know, you keep terming these things that you did wrong, you know, and we know that those might be so-called mistakes. We call them mistakes, but really they have such gold nuggets in them, and we learn so much from them that they can't be wrong. It was all perfect, wasn't it? When you look back over it, you sort of see it was perfect. But I
believe that, you know, we should be having people that have gone through stuff, and we should be utilising them on a platform so that they can share the life experience. And then if you're feeling down or you're feeling suicidal, then you can actually go in and click onto this, you know, what do they call those podcasts? And then they can go in, and then they can listen to different variations of that, you know, and how they overcame it, you know, because it's only until you resonate with something that's familiar that you actually want to know more, you know, and that you will actually give that a go. But I think education and making things accessible, you know, so I think economically, people that are well off or that are doing well, you know, they can pay and get this help that's way up here that's going to help them. But down here on the low economic scale, you know, how do we give these people that help at no cost? At no cost, I'm just saying. Yeah. Because really, if we can do things from this level, we're not going to need that, you know. And I don't know. I'm just sad because everything has to have value in it nowadays, you know, to survive, which is a reality that's actually becoming more and more ruthless, you know.
It is, totally.
And families are struggling, man. Families are really struggling out there. There's a lot of resource there, and, you know, but our providers are under-resourced.
Yeah.
You know, and it's only because of the systems that are in place that aren't working. And I don't know why, you know, we haven't really changed those. But hopefully, you know, with a lot of our iwi providers, and especially for us as Māori, you know, to be able to take something and use it our way, and to share it, then to come back and share it so that others can come. Because honestly, you know, once, you know, I've been to some wānanga, and at some wānanga, which is a hui where you learn stuff about Māori, you know, sometimes I go to some of them and there's actually more Europeans that are in their class than Māori.
Yeah.
You know, so they're passionate. You know?
For sure. Yeah.
You know, with us, some of us expect it because we are Māori, you know, and I suppose, but then we're scared to be Māori, you know, we're scared. I know a lot of Māoris are like myself. When you get up in the marae and you got to talk or do a mihi whakatau, you know, you're like really quiet. But when you got to say something that's from the heart, I'll always go above and beyond for that, you know, because I feel that's right. But it's, society is demanding right now. And my only thing is, you know, if you're out there and you can help someone, or you can give a little to someone to make their day better, you know, do it, please, you know, because honestly, my auntie used to say, you know, when we used to drive on the road and we'd go over some places, like, you know, maybe where a crash site was, and I'd feel sad, you know, I'd feel hurt, I'd feel scared, and I'd say, you know, what is that? And she would say, well, you know, someone's probably passed away there, and no one's acknowledged them.
Yeah.
She said, so tātai out, you know, have a karakia, have a prayer for them, and ask them to go with peace and love, you know. And I do that with everything now, you know. Whenever I feel that, it's automatic, you know. I'll do it with a dead possum, you know. I'll do it with any animal that I see, you know, like, you know, and that's just me. But even, you know, even like another area too is around understanding around life and death, which is a big thing as well for us, because I think with life, you know, our demand is so much that we got to try and do all of the stuff in our life, and when we don't achieve those things, it slows us down, and then what it does, it pulls our confidence back, and then we actually start being negative towards ourselves, you know, and then when death comes, we actually find it hard to let go of our loved ones, you know. And I'm just being honest here. This is just my whakaaro, okay? But I truly believe that once we take our last breath and we've left our bodies, our spirit automatically goes to heaven, okay? So we go straight to Atua, to our tupuna that are waiting there for us, all of our ancestors. And, you know, we're getting like 5-star, you know, hotels and travel costs and everything. The only thing that is hard is that the ones that are left here, because we love them so much, is that we find it hard to let go, because we feel that we can't move forward without them being there. And you notice that a lot of people that have these relationships, they actually miss all the things that they didn't like, okay? I'm just being honest. I didn't like the way that they always used to sing this song, or they always used to nag, or they always used to do this way of doing the housework, or, you know, you miss it because it's every day, it's daily. And then when you go there and it's not happening, you miss that. And then you got to wonder, what was it that I actually missed about this person, you know? You know, and I realized that stuff with my dad, because of his unhealthy cycles. I missed it, you know. I missed it, you know. So it was kind of like that.
Well, that's who you knew him as.
You know, that's right. And I didn't really know how to, you know, how to actually get that back. and how to deal with it, because I was kind of, I missed it so much.
Yeah.
But then, what it did was it made me want to know more about his mum and dad, and about their life, and their mum and dads, and I learned so much, just from missing him.
Yeah.
But it took me that long to do it,
That's beautiful.
And another thing is, like if you have any hara or you got any raru, which is like, if you have any burdens or you got any past hurt or trauma, with your whanau, make that time to make that peace. Even make that time to be the bigger person to just make that peace.
Yes.
Yeah, be that start.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And because like from that, I've always believed that if I had a candle and I could share that, and the gift was that we had to share it, we had to keep sharing that candle so that light would keep going, then, then we'd all be on the same path, to be honest, which is giving of ourselves.
Yes.
And being of service. So yeah, balance, health, communication is really massive, and vulnerability, because without being vulnerable, people aren't going to trust you. I'm just being honest. If you're going to sit there and talk about something horrific and not cry about it, then I'm not going to believe you. I'm just being honest, because I'll be like, well, I don't think it's really touched him, or I don't think it's really, he's not telling me the whole truth.
Yeah.
And that's how I am. I'll actually keep pushing until I get to the seed of what that issue is.
Yeah.
Because I believe it has to come out. But yeah, Mandy, one thing I want to say is I want to thank you, because you've always been there to support Only Deaf, and you've always, you've always been there for me and my family. Always.
Yeah. And you.
Yeah, I know. And like, and through yourself, Mandy, I've met a lot of friends, and made friends with a lot of your people too. And we've helped each other, and I'll always continue to do that, But as I've gotten older and had children, it's like anything, you gotta balance your time so that you have time with your family and your mahi. You got your mahi, and then you got your family, and then you actually have this stuff, which is your spirituality stuff. And you still got to keep all of that balanced. You do, absolutely. Because, I think the harshest thing I learned in spirituality was around jealousy, and people being hurtful towards you because they're jealous of what you can do. And sometimes it makes us whakama to go back in. It does. But, we just got to stand strong, because the only reason that we're there at that particular time and that space and meeting and having these interactions with these people is because we actually put there to help. Yeah. Like I've always believed in, that the breath of life is the best thing, is the one thing that we're grateful for. Yes. I've always believed that, like with Jesus, him sacrificing himself so we can sin and be forgiven, that there in itself is a learning around forgiveness, peace and love, and being unconditional with that. And then we have the Holy Spirit, who's divine intervention. So those particular times where we're in situations and they should be a lot worse, but we've been helped in some way. Yeah. Or something's come and shown itself, and then it's supporting us. Yeah. I get that all the time. I'm just being honest. Yeah. And it's because of it's like karma. I think if you give, you receive. It's forever flowing. But for me, it's like the cycle of life. It's forever. It is forever. And when you're losing someone, and then when someone's born, you rejoice in those things. But always, now that I've dealt with a lot of loss, I think because my parents passed away when I was quite young, it taught me at a young age on how to look at life and death.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how to respect it.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think, you know, like a lot of people use church, or they use, you know, religion, or, you know, anything like that. But for me, I always use how I feel. But I'm always providing that positive energy to make sure that their path is clear for them to go, and that they're not alone.
Yeah.
And also ask for the strength for their family back here to be able to carry on, you know. And I'm just being honest right now. I think, you know, when, like, you know, when they pass away and we take them to the funeral places.
Yeah.
I said, Māori, we don't like them being alone.
No.
Because, you know, if you think about it, yeah, their spirit has gone. But in Māoridom, they always say the 3 days from when they pass is they can't see, so they can hear. And that's why we always mihi, you know, kōrero, why we always waiata, sing, why we always do the haka, you know, why we always do karakia, why we laugh, why we cry, why we tell stories, you know, why we show all this emotion and what it is that we do, because we're actually guiding them to where they need to go.
Yeah.
So then in that time period, when it is time for them to go and we're lowering them into the ground, everything's at peace. And then when we go back and we have a, it's like a, you know, we have a kai, yeah. Yep. So that there, it takes the tapu away from everything, you know. Yeah. And then, you know, then like a year or 3 years later, you have an unveiling. Yeah. So for some people, it's like a, you know, it's a mourning period where, you know, and that's where you go through all your 4 seasons because you're struggling, you know, and that's okay. Yeah. You know, some people are faster than others. Some aren't. Some always hold on. But it's about being able to grab some tools that you can use in anything so that you can manage and navigate yourself around that journey. And then whenever those triggers come, you have something in your kite that you can use and you can share with your whanau that are going through the same thing.
Yes.
I'm a real big push in that area because I think the counselling and I think programs around understanding stuff, we don't do that enough around, you know, around this.
Yeah.
Because it is about letting go. And forgiveness.
Yeah. And
sorry, it's getting a bit deep there.
No, that was great though, Kepa. And a lot of, you know, I feel like a lot of, you know, humanity's lost the respect for that breath of life, you know, lost respect for the bodies that they've been given, which we wouldn't have if we didn't have our ancestors. You know, our bodies come through from our ancestry. And so it's like it is an honor to be here, and it is an honor to be walking in those pathways too that our ancestors set up, you know. And I think like that Whananaki, you know, healing retreat weekend we went to, you know, there was such a lot of
turmoil.
Respect for the ancestors. It was like there was just this selfishness in this moment that was supposed to be giving to you know, that the whole weekend was set up to in service, in the healing service with people, and there was just this stuff going on. It was unreal. But for me, what that did was it was just showing me again how there was no connection to the past and their ancestry and to the ancestors and Te Puna coming in and showing and helping to guide, and they were just blind to it all in their own.
Yeah, you know? And that's what I mean about past issues. You know, if we're not going to make the time to clear those things, then that is going to keep building. And you know, when we have children, you know, like when we have children and there's things that we don't say to them, right? Even though we're not saying it, they're feeling it. Okay, yes. I'm just being honest. Yeah. And because they're feeling it, they're doing their own interpretation of it. Yeah. Hence the reason I say that communication is really valuable because we have to actually be able to talk about those things that they're not sure about. You know, but I think for that time that we were up there, we were actually in a space of all the unsettled stuff that was happening that had been there for generations, to be honest.
It was beautiful in the end, you know, and what we experienced and how things just moved and it showed up was just beautiful, as it always is. But yeah, there was a lot of people learning a lot of things that weekend for sure. It was cool.
I really want to I just really wanted to acknowledge like all those people out there that are helping whanau, you know, and helping others, you know, keep up the mahi, you know, keep up the good work and keep striving to better yourself and to be of service and also, you know, like network with others, you know, so that you can, you know, there might be something out of their kitty that you need that can enhance you, you know, to another level as well. You know, it's all about supporting each other, but
it is.
You know, I think we need to have, you know, more, I suppose, spiritual or healing workshops, like how we used to, and bringing everyone together again, you know, and learning about the history, the whakapapa of each person's gift through their whanau. I'm just being honest, because it's more respectful, you know. And then getting together and then providing a service so that our public whanau, the ones that can't afford to go to the doctor, I'm just being honest, but we can help in some way, you know, to gain confidence or to gain clarity or to gain some peace in whatever it is that they're struggling with, you know. And I believe in spirituality so much because it saved me. And it's only because of the love that I have for my aunties and also all the people that have taken their time out. But also, I love the gifts that we have as individuals and how we can enhance that and how we can actually, you know, when you're around certain people, man, you just give them so much confidence and they just grow, they just drawn to you. You know, and it's because it's time.
It is.
It's time. It's time to actually share and to care. Oh, hey, and to care. Okay? So if you care, then you're a healer, okay? I'm being honest. Right? If you care, you're a healer. But you know, just don't get caught up in caring too much about others and not yourself.
Yeah, for sure. It's got to be a balance. Absolutely. And we've learned that. I think every person in service of this, you know, on this planet has learned, probably, if not, they will learn that it has to be balanced and we have to give to ourselves as well. That's beautiful, Kepa. And I've witnessed you for many years just giving so much in service, as I said in the beginning, and, you know, going out at all hours of the night and the mornings through the night. You know, you never complain. You know, I've watched you be so tired sometimes from doing weekends and then having to call out again. You're getting called out and you just continually keep giving. And I admire you so much. I think you're just one of the strongest tane that I know and one of the most compassionate, beautiful hearts, as I said. Love you to bits, Kepa, and I thank you so, so much for coming in and doing this kōrero with me. And just keep, you will just keep doing it. Thank you so much.
I'll be honest, coming on here, I was scared as, okay, because this is real different to how I do things. But I hope it gives people an insight. And, you know, if you see me on the street or if you want to get a hold of Mandy and you want to catch up or talk or whatever, just, hey, my door's always open. Yeah.
It is always. You're a beautiful man. Thank you, Kepa. Love you heaps.
Yeah, love you heap, Mandy. Thank you. Have a good day.